Hey guys, it's me. Um, Figured I'd try to do another video for Green Angel, so here we go. When I went out in the morning, there was nothing left but ashes and stones. We had been at the height of our harvest, row after row of new zucchini and purple onions, of peppers that were shiny as frogs, and blueberry bushes that were thickening with fruit. That garden was gone. Those days were over. Standing there, I knew my family wasn't coming back. I could feel it the way you feel the wind across your face. Invisible, but certain, sure as the blood in your veins. I carried the stones which had chased the looters from our garden in all of my pockets. I took them far into the woods, out to where the oldest trees grew. Was it an accident that these stones had fallen? Or was it something more? Should I be grateful to someone who watched over me? I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know if I believed in anything at all. Carefully, I made 3 piles, one for my mother, one for my father, one for my little sister. Every day I carted stones, and every day I added to the growing stacks. Black for my mother, silver for my father, pure white for my sister, the hardest to find. The white stones tossed in our garden were the best of all. They were like moonstones, aglow with light. Wherever I went, I carried the stones in my pockets, my hands, my boots. It was my duty, my burden, my gift, my soul, the reason I woke in the morning and went to sleep at night. Now I had a purpose, to build the stone stacks. I had known the woods before. Now I knew them nearly blind and in the dark. I could find my way by touch. My fingers could tell the difference between east and west. I could rub a clod of dirt under my thumb and gauge how close the river was. Before long, I could hold a fallen feather in the palm of my hand and tell whether it belonged to a jay or a sparrow or a dove. When the stacks of stones were as tall as the tallest men in the village, I went on to my next task. I began to clean the house. I was determined to get rid of all of the ashes. I swept the floor until the straw bristles of the broom were ragged from use. I cleaned my fingers. I cleaned until my fingers hurt, and when it was done, when the brass doorknobs were shining and the kettles were scrubbed and the windows were bright with light, I turned on myself. I chopped all of my burnt hair with the scissors my mother had used to trim the roses beside the front door. My hair was nothing more than a black curtain. I didn't need it anymore. My hair reminded me of my mother. It was the only way I was like her, the one feature we shared. I didn't want to be prideful anymore. I wanted to be as hard and as brittle as stones I carted into the woods. Stones that could not feel or cry or see. That is what I wished for as I walked past the brambles. As I built the stacks in the woods higher and higher, I wished not to feel anything at all. I had no idea that even in the darkest world, there are some wishes that can come true. Now I understand that those stones are the ones to think over most carefully. Those are the wishes that can wound just as surely as the sharpest arrow. In no time, what I wished for, I became. Soon enough, I began wearing my father's old black boots and battered leather jacket that felt like armor. I kept several smooth rocks in my pockets along with a slingshot fashioned out of wood and a belt. I planned to be ready in case the looters came back. I smoked cigarettes I discovered in a drawer. I drank from the bottle of gin in the cupboard until my stomach burned. One night, when the sky was ash-colored, I went into the ruined garden and clipped thorns from the bare rose bushes and sewed them to my clothes one by one until my fingers bled. Now I was ready to feel nothing. I was protected from feeling anything at all. All the same, there was less and less food in the pantry, and my stomach growled all the time. I hated I hated it for wanting food. I didn't deserve anything. No, not food to ease my hunger or water to ease my thirst. I should have been on that street weighing vegetables when it happened. Instead, I had been weeding and thinking about my lunch. I was standing under a perfect blue sky, feeling sorry for myself. That was when I took a pen and some black ink. I began to mark my arm. I outlined a raven, and then a bat, and then a rose that looked like a flower found at the end of the world. That's who I was now without my mother and father and my moonlit sister. Blood and ink. Darkness where before there had been patience. Black where there once had been green. The decision of who would stay and who would go to the city was made arbitrarily that day. A single white page of fate that altered our future. I could have insisted. I could have run after them. Then I would have been there to turn my mother at the instant when it happened. The last thing I saw would have been her black hair and the fire behind her, red as roses. But I was the one who was still alive, the girl whose eyes burned, whose vision was blurry, whose stomach growled, who wrote upon herself with black ink, as if that could change anything. Once I had wanted only one thing, to be 16, one simple, easy desire. That day wasn't so far away, but it might, as would remain, that the birds would sing, that my garden would grow. Wanting only darkness, I began to sleep. I slept longer and longer. I ignored daylight and hope. I didn't care if the sky had begun to clear. Most of the ashes had fallen to the ground, leaving the horizon a faint, washed out blue. On several occasions, I had noticed white clouds. There was a promise of sunshine. That wasn't what I wanted. I would rather sleep than eat or see the sky. Each time I put away my ink and pens, I closed all the windows. I drew the shades. When I went to sleep, this is what I dreamed. Under the table where I felt safer. I tied a scarf around my burning eyes so that not even the tiniest bit of light could disturb me or remind me of what I had lost. When I slept, I dreamed of the world as it was. My sister was clearing away the ashes. My sister was opening the window. Her hair was the color of moonlight, ice colored, knotted from sleep. Help me, she'd demand, when the windows stuck fast in my dreams, when the door wouldn't open, when the ashes were so deep she'd never be able to clear them away all alone. I'd rise from my bed and do as she asked because I couldn't deny her anything. Once again, I was Green, who had patience. I was the girl with long black hair who held the open book, white pages, empty and clean, black words flying like ravens, still waiting for the future, still hopeful, still me. Whenever I dreamed and my sister was beside me, I could breathe easier. Aurora's skin was silver, aglow with light. Sometimes in my dreams, she had grown up and was my age exactly. Even as my twin, she was still my beloved opposite, the moon, not brackish green water, bright, not dim, wild, not plodding and shy. She was my sister, and she knew my thoughts before they were spoken. She knew why I couldn't bear to see, why I wanted the cinders in my eyes, why I never bothered going to my mother's medicine cabinet, where there were so many ointments and cures. My vision was little more than shadows, but even in my dreams I wouldn't search for a cure. You know what you have to do in order to see, Aurora told me. She pinched me and pulled my hair to try to make me cry, but I wouldn't, not in my sleep nor in my waking life. My sister may have been as cold as silver in my dreams, but she was as real to me as the candlesticks on the dining room table, as real as the moon climbing into the inky black sky, as real as the needles and pins. Each time I awoke, I felt her slip through my grasp, a cloud of mist evaporating in the light of day. If I couldn't see, if I shut out what was there before me and sleepwalked through my life, then I could go on dreaming. While I was sweeping the floor, while I collected buckets of water from the well, while I counted jars of blackberry jam that were left in the pantry. First four, then two, then none at all. I was still with my sister. Each night before I slept, I took the black ink and tattooed ravens and roses and bats that could fly through the dark. I thought I was almost blind. I could see well enough to do this. I could spy black ink, sorrow, loss, hearts breaking. I could see well enough to see that I was alone. I could see that soon enough I'd be starving if I didn't figure out what to do next. I had picked all the blackberries that grew in the woods, all the blueberries, all the raspberries. I had found wild asparagus and made soups from the black pot I kept on the fire I left burning in the stove. My hands were rough from chopping wood, from gathering asparagus in the marshes, from collecting a few berries that hadn't been singed black from the heat across the river. There were very few tins left in the pantry, no flour, no salt, and my stomach went on growling, wanting me to stay alive. I decided to go into town, but I wasn't a fool. I took precautions. I wore my leather jacket, my clothes with thorns, my heavy boots, which I had hammered half a dozen nails. I carried my stones and my slingshot. I was ready for looters, wild men, highway robbers. I expected almost anything, but when I left the woods for the Mam thoroughfare, all that greeted me was an unnatural silence. There used to be traffic. There were trains that ran the on the hour racing across the silver bridge into the city. Now the bridge had all but melted in the heat from the city. It was closed, a thick rope tied across the entrance. People stayed close to home, worried about what might await them on the open road. There used to be children headed to the river to swim on hot days. Now there was no one. There used to be bicyclists, carts, farmers on their way into town to the monthly market. Now there was nothing but the dust I kicked into the air with every step I took. My sister's dog had followed me. He snarled at the few strays lurking about, pets left to fend for themselves and their owners failed to return home. No, on one corner there were two dead ravens, their feathers thick with ash. The plum trees that had lined the road were leafless, the bark gray. When I passed the church just outside the village, there was a sign printed with names of everyone who'd been lost, one after the other, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. I was amazed by how many there were, but I was not surprised to see my name among them. The girl I had been, the one called Green, they were right about her. She was gone. The shopkeeper at the general store stared hard when he saw me. He didn't know who I was, with my short hair, with my black ink and the nails in my shoes. He reached for the club he kept near his money box, ready to fight me off if need be. Even after I told him I was my parents' daughter, he didn't seem to believe me. He spoke to me from a distance, keeping the counter between us, as if he were conversing with a ghost. Everyone said you were dead, he insisted. I didn't dispute this. I didn't say these people were wrong. I just took what I brought to trade out from my backpack, and held it up to the light. The shopkeeper noticed my cloudy eyes. He could tell it was half blind. Perhaps this was why he tried to cheat me. He told me the ring I had was copper, but I knew it was gold. My mother had kept this ring in a bowl on her dresser, and I had played with it ever since I was a baby. I knew what I held in my hands. Pure sunlight, pure gold. I laughed at the idea that my mother's most valued piece of jewelry was copper. The sound of my voice frightened the shopkeeper, and he stepped even farther away. He didn't know what to expect from me, but one thing was certain. I wasn't shy anymore. I wasn't that quiet, moody Green whom anyone could fool. I was the girl who could touch the earth and gauge where to find the river. I was the one who could feel the sorrow in the wind. I knew that gold was heavy, copper was warm, and the silver candlesticks I brought forth from my backpack felt like ice. I suppose you're going to tell me these are deer's antlers, I said of the candlesticks, which had been cast by one of the finest silversmiths in this city. I know what I have, I told the shopkeeper. I expect to be paid well. That was the last of any arguments at the general store. As a matter of fact, the shopkeeper called for his wife, who came to watch me with narrowed eyes as if I were a circus act or a charlatan. Green, the shopkeeper's wife said uncertainly. She'd known my family well, and had often bought vegetables from my mother. But in the world we now lived in, why should she trust me any more than I trusted her? Why shouldn't she gawk at the nails in my boots and the slingshot in my pocket? The shopkeeper and his wife tested my ability to distinguish by touch. I could identify silver and gold. What else might I know? Sure enough, I could tell green tea from black, navy beans from kidney beans, earth from ashes, honesty from deceit. I had another talent, it seemed, one that made people nervous. After that, rumors flew, and quickly enough, there were those who swore that anyone who touched my hand would be visited by bad fortune. I didn't disagree. I wanted the looters to hear about how I could turn the luck of anyone who came near me. And who was to say I wasn't cursed? I had lost my mother, and my father, and my sister, and sometimes when I caught a glimpse of myself in a shop window, I wondered if perhaps I hadn't lost myself as well. Each time I tried to say my name out loud, the words stuck in my throat. A black stone, a silver stone, a stone as white as moonlight. Before long, every shopkeeper of Mam Street knew of my talents and my cloudy eyes. Even the looters, gathered under bridges and on street corners, were wary and stayed clear. In every store, people I'd known all my life hurried when I came to trade, and what I no longer desired for what I needed, and I no longer desired for what I needed. They were forced to be honest with me, and they gave me what I'd come for: gold and silver in exchange for cranberry juice, white rice, bandages, brown sugar, salt, vitamins, coins and candlesticks for eggs and tins of baked beans, sugar, vinegar, laundry soap, candles. There were good people in town who were helping out their neighbors, and others who saw an opportunity for greed. Some people were busy cleaning the ashes out of the schoolhouse, while others were selling overpriced lanterns and oil and counting their profits. Honorable or not, most people were desperate for good fortune. Many hung horseshoes above their doors. They made certain to keep sprigs of roseberry nearby, to protect them from evil. But I knew better. I was defended with my nails and my thorns. I wore boots with nails, a scarf of black thorns. One time when I was leaving town with a heavy backpack, a woman I recognized, a teacher of mine, called out for me to be careful on the road. She was kind-hearted, and I remembered her lessons in language and history, but she wasn't my teacher anymore. I waved, but I hadn't learned anything new from her. I already knew that danger was everywhere. I took a different route home each time to ensure that no one would follow Onion and me. I favored paths so rocky and steep, anyone else would have stumbled. It was the reason the earth turned red and yellow when the whole countryside was blessed with orange light, but not anymore. Leaves changed slowly: rubies, garnets, amber. This year, they had all dropped off at the same time. This was the season when my sister and I had gathered fallen apples from trees in our neighbor's orchard. The old woman would chase us away, shouting and throwing stones that dropped harmlessly on the grass. Now the orchard was bare, and the apple trees were as fruitless as fence posts. The hillsides were black, the road littered with garbage. Feral house cats living in the ditches would claw at any kindness, and Onion was so afraid of these wild cats, I had to carry him when they hissed and showed their claws. Alright, guys, I think that's going to be it for me today, but I will record another one soon whenever I get the time. Um, Seemed to be a little better this time. I didn't mess up as much, so that's good. So yeah, if you want to hear any more, just leave a comment below. Let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll record other books when I can. So, thanks for watching. Bye.